Walter Russell Mead is a professor of Foreign Affairs and Humanities at Bard College, and he taught American foreign policy at Yale University. He is also a columnist for the Wall Street Journal. I'm going to switch mics so I'm more in the center, and I know that Seth will appreciate that. I'm trying to make sense of the horrendous acts of violence perpetrated against Jews, or those who looked Jewish, during the recent war in Gaza. He suggested that past anti-Semitic violence in America came in one of three ways. Either perpetrated by a deranged individual like the 2018 Pittsburgh Tree of Life shooting, or as an outgrowth of communal tensions such as the 1981 Crown Heights riots, or as an attack on a particular individual such as the long-ago lynching of Leo Frank in 1915. Today, he argues that we are seeing something significantly different. Today, we are witnessing mobs who visit widespread violence on random Jews in the streets or sitting in cafes. These targets have no responsibility for Israel policy, yet, if they look Jewish or are associated with anything Jewish, they are being pursued simply because of the hatred so many have against Israel. Not just her policies, but her very existence. Facts are irrelevant. If you are Jewish, there is an assumption you are a Zionist and you are evil. You embody all the woke left hates. You are a racist, a colonizer, and are contributing to an ongoing apartheid state. Facts are irrelevant. As Bill Seligman wrote on his Facebook page the other day, after the remarkable coalition in Israel was sworn in, he asked for a list of non-Muslim majority countries that have Islamic political parties in their government. A list of non-Muslim majority countries that have Islamic political parties in their government. He came up with one country, only one country, Israel. But one of the many clear signs to anyone who uses the slur of apartheid when describing Israel that they are speaking either from ignorance or from bigotry. Ignorance and bigotry. It overflows on social media, in Hollywood, in certain parts of Congress. So much hatred spews forth, which in turn leads to the violence we have been witnessing. It is unimaginable that in 2021, a child riding a scooter in Beverly Hills could be punched in the face by someone simply because he is dressed in Jewish garb. More remarkable than that is that it wasn't in the news. You didn't read about it. Could we have imagined in 2021 Jewish diners in a sushi restaurant on the West Side being assaulted simply for being Jewish? That we would see vandalism strike at synagogues across the country. 125 years ago, Theodore Herzl wrote that Jews suffer persecution because they do not have a place of their own, a state that would solve the anti-Semitism. Today, because of Israel, Jews are victims of anti-Semitism that is couched in anti-Zionism. Our quest all these years was to prove Herzl wrong, to state unequivocally that America is different. The distinctiveness of our country has been to build a national identity that transcends race and religion, to create a country for all citizens to feel welcomed. And while we have not yet reached that pinnacle, we continue to work to build such a country, fighting those on the left and the right who wish to take that away, whose desire is to create a state in the image of their politics of ideology of hate. Mead adds that those who challenge the place of Jews in America challenge the basis of America itself. Jew hatred aims to destroy the habits and beliefs, however imperfectly developed, that allow our divisive population to live in peace and that make our democracy work. Whether it brandishes a tiki torch or wraps itself in a Palestinian flag, hatred is the implacable enemy of the American way. And by the way, so too is it the enemy of Israel. When the Zionist dreamers created their state, they also aimed to fulfill the words of Herzl. We shall live at last as free men on our own soil in our own homes, peacefully die. The world will be liberated by our freedom, enriched by our wealth, magnified by our greatness. And whatever we attempt there for our own benefit will rebound mightily and beneficially to the good of all mankind. From its inception, Israel was dedicated to bettering the world, beginning with her own citizens, as the Declaration clearly states. The state of Israel will foster the development of the country for the benefit of all its inhabitants. It will be based on freedom, justice, and peace, as envisioned by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. Israel isn't perfect. Far from it. No country is. But no country must stand up to the scrutiny that Israel endures. No country's right to existence is constantly challenged. And it doesn't help when co-religionists, fellow Jews, condemn Israel, support BDS, and other delegitimizing dogmas. It feeds the anti-Semites, giving them an opening to say, if it's okay for Jews to question Israel's right to exist, then I certainly can. Of course, we have a right to criticize. Israel desires it. Tochacha, loving rebuke, is essential in any and every loving relationship. But how it is done, where it is done, when it is done, is the difference between a loving relationship and one based on hate. At a time when the winds are shifting, when Congress no longer stands united for Israel, when Hollywood has turned its back on the Jewish state, when college campuses are hotbeds of anti-Zionist rhetoric, Jews must stand up even stronger for Israel. We must transform any tepid support into zeal and passion and love for our country. We need to tell the story of her success, of her outreach at peace, at her now most hopeful moment when left, right, center, and an Islamist party can sit together and govern. I don't know about you, but I was truly moved by the words that Yair Lapid was supposed to give on the day of the new Knesset. Words of promise, words of vision, and words of peace. He wrote, "Before we look to the future, we have another task. We need to find a way to forgive one another for the past. Hate is a prison, and forgiveness is a way out." I look at the past few years in the life of this country, the protests, the anger, the terrible things that have been said in this hall. I don't want to be held hostage by those years. The past few years have seen us all turned from people into labels. Right, left, secular, Haredi, Jewish, Arab. The government has been formed so that we stop being labels and revive our common identity, people with all our complexities. We have an argument between us over politics and values, but we are not enemies. We live here together. Our fate is intertwined. After all the insults and the warnings, the real divide in Israel's society isn't between left and right. The real divide is between moderates and extremists, those who want to build and those who want to destroy. I think these same words can be said about our country. Those extremists on both sides simply want to destroy America as we know it. And how easy it is to create a common enemy, the Jews. As has been in the past, so too in the present. We are the canary in the coal mine. We are the ones who suffer when extremists take control. And we cannot let that happen. Today's anti-Semitism is a sign of just that flourishing of hate. We cannot let it control us. As Lapid said, violent racists do not become patriots just because they wrap themselves in a flag. They will not define for us what it means to love Israel, nor can they define for us what it means to love America. We, each one of us, together, must stand strong and stand firm. Standing up for Israel is a way to protect ourselves here in America, whether through AIPAC or through Stand With Us or any other organization. By supporting such organizations that are working toward peaceful coexistence between Palestinians and Jews, whether supporting Magen Adom or the IDF, when we secure the democratic state of Israel, we protect the Jews in America. We say, Am Yisrael Chai, may Israel live. When we say those words, we understand we are talking about us Americans here as well. Am Yisrael Chai. Let us say that again. Am Yisrael Chai. Shabbat Shalom.